Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I want to talk about the 10 books that I would recommend you to pick up during fall. So I have a wide variety of books here, very different genres and very different moods, because I feel like all of us read very specific books during fall. I tend to read cozy books, but also mysteries, sometimes a little bit of horror, even though I'm not such a big fan of the genre, but unsettling books or just really long historical fiction novels where you can really immerse yourself into the story or just get to know some amazing characters. So I feel like on this list there's something for everyone. And the first one of these books is actually one that I feel it's the most quintessential October read, and that is because the main character loves this month, loves October. So it is Anne of Green Gables by Lucy M. Montgomery. This is also a classic, so if you want to read like an easy, cozy classic about family and friends, this is the perfect one for you. I grew up watching the 80s miniseries and I used to watch that every single year during autumn. So it's a book and it's a series which is really close to my heart, and I feel it always reminds me of my childhood. So I really, really love this story. The next book I would recommend is one of Ruth Ware's books, which is set in a house. And this is like a murder mystery. Because why set in a house? I feel like during this time of the year we spend more and more time inside because it's getting cooler outside. So I think that reading a book which is set in a house is the perfect thing to do. And The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware is set in this smart house in which we follow this nanny who is taking care of some young children. And it's really a remote location. And as I said, the house is a smart house. So even when she uses the shower, she has to kind of talk to the house, or she has her own shower settings saved in a wall panel, so the house knows whether she likes hot showers or cold showers, for example. So I feel like the house plays a major part in this novel, and it's the perfect one. So if you love Ruth Ware books or murder mysteries in general, I think you would definitely enjoy this one, especially because I think Ruth Ware's books are generally really well received and really well loved by people who tend to like murder mysteries. So you can't go wrong with picking up one of her books. The next book I want to recommend is a nonfiction one. It is a memoir. And you might ask, why a nonfiction in October? But it makes sense for me because next month is Nonfiction November, a month-long read-along, when we are encouraged to read as many nonfiction books as possible. Just one or more, or exclusively nonfiction if you feel like it. So for this I have a memoir for you. It is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. And this is a really hard-hitting memoir. It is about Chanel Miller and what happened to her when she was sexually assaulted when she went to this university party at Stanford with her sister. This is about that night and what happened afterwards up until the sentencing, which was happened like I don't know how many years after. So she had to live constantly with what happened to her that one night for so many years until she finally got a closure. And it wasn't even like a closure as in he got what he deserved, because he only got, I think, 6 months in county jail. So it's not even a real jail. I feel like there's a difference there. And it's just about how society treats women victims of a sexual assault, how they are blamed, and how society views these perpetrators, how society, for example, how this person, Brock Turner, was presented throughout the trial as someone with such a bright future ahead of him, someone who is a swimmer, who is really a bright and really, a young man who has everything going for him, and how he can be blamed for something, for such a small mistake, which is, I think, the most insane thing ever. And how she was portrayed as someone who was almost like, asked for it, because why did she go to this party? Why did she dress the way she did? Why did she drink? I mean, what did she expect? I mean, it's just is just so upsetting. And I think this book helped a lot of people. And it's a quite a known case, especially in the US, because her victim statement was posted on BuzzFeed and it went viral. It was seen by more than 11 million people, I feel, in the span of 4 days. So if you haven't picked this book up yet, please do so. It's such an important one to read. Next, I have some really like horroristic short stories for you. And there are two short story collections out by this author, which I read, I think, both this year. It is Mariana Enriquez's short story collections, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed and The Things We Lost in the Fire. And oh my God, these are so captivating short stories. It is they are set in Argentina, and it is about life in Argentina in the cities. It focuses on women and it focuses on society in general. There's a lot of macabre and a little bit of superstitious elements, a little bit of supernatural elements interwoven in these stories. But all of them were so captivating that I could not stop reading them. And if you are up for something a bit more scary and unsettling, I think you should definitely check her out. The next one, I also have a short novel, and it is a literary fiction one. And it's also perfect, I feel, for this time because it was so unsettling and it was so hard to read. And if I would have to describe it in a few words, then I would say murder, mayhem, witches, depravity, and brutality. I picked this up because, it is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchior. And I picked this up because it is set in a small town in Mexico. It feels like it's like a forgotten place, not even on a map type of town. As I said, it's quite a short one, but it took me such a time because it was hard to read more than a chapter a day, because this book presents humans at their really worst. Everything that can go wrong goes wrong, basically. And each chapter is narrated by a different person, and each person is somehow involved in a murder which happened in this town. But there's no one to help these people because the police are quite helpless in this situation and quite dirty as well. So be brave when you go into this. And if you like these type of stories, definitely check this out. It is a short one, but it packs such a punch. And now I feel I have to I have to tell you about something more lighthearted and fun, because both of these last books were quite the hard-hitting ones and the hard ones to read. So I'm gonna move away to something more light and fluffy, but dramatic nonetheless. So a Gothic Romance. I feel like they're perfect pickup in October or during fall. And I have a Sicilian Romance by Anne Radcliffe for you for this one. I read this year, and I also have a video because I read it together with Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, which is also a Gothic novel. And I think they're perfect ones to read together. But for this one, I chose a Sicilian Romance because I think it's like the OG Gothic novel, which is jam-packed with all the Gothic tropes you could think about. If you love Spanish or South American telenovelas, this would also be for you because it has a lot of those dramatic elements in it. So it's basically set in Sicily, and it is about this young girl and what happens to her when her father wants her to marry someone she doesn't want to marry. There's so much adventure, so many caves, so much running away. I was thinking at this point, like, they are on this island and they're running, and there's several people running, several girls running away and different parties who go after them, they run into each other. So I'm like thinking, how much running, how many caves, how many castles, how many abbeys, how many forgotten, rundown houses can be on this island? Because I feel like there are many, because we're constantly finding one or escaping into one or hiding in one. And yeah, it was just so much fun. And for something that was written such a long time ago, I feel like it was such an easy read as well. So you have, if you haven't picked up an Anne Radcliffe novel before, and you love classics and you want to read the OG, I would say, Gothic novel, please do so. I mean, it's so out there, but it's so much fun as well at the same time. The next book I have for you is Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and I feel like a book by Daphne du Maurier had to be on this list. And I chose Jamaica Inn because here the rainy season, November, and the Cornish coast and the moors play such a big part in the story that it's really perfect for this time of the year. So if you really want to read a book set a lot outside or at this really dark place like this inn where mysterious things and not so legal things happen, and with a lot of like dark characters and where really dangerous situations come and you might be swept away by what's happening yourself, then this is a perfect one for you. So in this one, we follow this young girl who has to go live with her aunt, her only remaining living relative after her mother dies. And it's her mother's dying wish to go live with this aunt. And this aunt is married to this innkeeper, and they have this Jamaica Inn. But it is such a dark place where not a lot of upstanding people go and live, and this young girl is really warned from the start that she should stay away from Jamaica Inn, but she doesn't have a choice. So she's really swept away by what's happening at this inn, and she really tries to figure out what's really happening, what's at the heart of this. Okay, we're down to the last three. For this one, I have like a sweeping story, like one of those immersive historical fiction novels that really, like really chunky and where you really get to know like a bunch of people and there's just something happening and you are swept away. You really can immerse yourself in this story. I think I read this, or I think I listened to this last year, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was one of those slow-paced, character-focused stories with a mystery at its center. And it is the Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. So I really love this story because it is set along a river, and it is set at this inn where people come and tell stories. And then one night, they kind of something happens there, and it puts themselves in the middle of this story, in the middle of this mystery, because this man comes in with a seemingly dead child in his arms. He passes out, and they feel like they check the child, and it seems like the child is dead. It's a young girl. But then a few hours afterwards, the child comes back to life. And no one knows who this child is, and several families claim this child as their own. So this is a story of what happens to that child. It's a story of who that child is, and who are all these people who have been there that night, or people who are somehow related to this child. And it is just so beautifully told. I think I really love the language and how the author writes about these characters. So if you love like a slower paced, character focused historical fiction with a mystery at its center, beautifully told, then this book is definitely for you. Next, I have another slow-paced, character-focused book for you, and it is a fantasy this time, and the first in a series. So perfect time to pick up because, yeah, you have so many books out and you can just immerse yourself in the story in the coming darker months, so to speak. It is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. And I have picked this book up because it's one of those really hyped fantasy books a lot of fantasy readers recommend. And I just wanted to check it out. And oh my God, I haven't regretted it. I'm already reading the second one. Actually, I'm listening to it. And I'm taking my time with it. It's not something that I listen to on a daily basis. I go back and forth whenever I feel like I'm in the mood. But I always, no matter if it's been days or weeks, I always feel like I'm back where I was, and it feels like I just read previous chapters the other day. So it's like always going back immediately into that world. And it's not like I'm forgetting anything. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because it's the character focus. You kind of tend to remember them and you kind of relate to them and in a different way, as opposed to when it's something really fast paced, when you really don't get the chance to know those people. You just really focused on what's happening and everything's just so fast. And you're done with it, you kind of forget it as well. Well, this is not the case for this. So if you love a slow-paced, character-focused fantasy set in a medieval type of world where the main characters go on an adventure and there's so many other things happening, there's like different perspectives and different storylines that kind of all will go together at some point, I feel. I don't think you will get disappointed. And the last one I have for you is a very short and a really weird one, so I think it's perfect for this time of the year. And it is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. So I have read Convenience Store Woman last year and I really enjoyed it. So when I went to pick this up, I really didn't look into it at all and I went into it quite blind. But I think for me it was the right way to do it because I did not expect all the weirdness at all, and I was a bit unsure how I feel about it while reading it, but it is an exceptional novel. But just be aware that the weirdness gets even weirder and weirder towards the end, and at the end it's quite horroristic. So check up on trigger warnings if you want. For me though, it was the perfect way to go into it, not knowing at all. But it deals with quite hard topics as well. So basically we follow this young girl who goes to this mountain to meet up with her extended family. Throughout her childhood, they go every year. And there she has a friend, a cousin, whom she can really be friends with. And it's almost like the only person in the whole world who understands her and believes her, because she is constructing this reality for herself. And she's really living in this reality in order to cope with what's happening to her because of her family, what certain events that happen at school and so on and so forth. And she takes this constructed reality and she lives in this reality throughout her life. Because later we follow her when she is a young woman and she's in this really weird marriage, so to speak. So it is quite an unusual story. And at the heart of it, it is about women and how women are expected to be, how young girls are expected to be, and just the role of women in general in society. This novel is set in South Korea. So society expectations and how society is in general as well. And it's a great commentary on that. So if you love books about women, where there's a commentary on women's place in society, then you will definitely enjoy this one. Just make sure that you go into it being aware that it can go to really dark places. So these were the books I had for this video. Let me know if you have read any of these, or if you have some other great books you would recommend based on these ones. And yeah, I guess I will see you next time. Bye bye.